Our trip is coming to an end, and we're off to our last destination, Rome. Our train ride takes an hour and 40 minutes, arriving at the Roma Termini railroad station. With our Roma passes in hand, we're off to see the Vatican. Arriving at 1 in the afternoon, we thought we'd missed the worst of the lines, but we were wrong. There was still a 2.5-hour wait to get into the Vatican Museum. While in line, we were approached by several tour operators, saying that if we took their €40 tour, which included the €20 admission fee, we could skip the line. Trying to be efficient with our time, we took one up on our offer. It still took us about 2.5 hours before we were able to enter the museum, but we were able to spend most of that time enjoying some lunch, instead of waiting in the hot sun. The tour was rushed, bypassing a number of rooms we would normally have wanted to spend some time in. Since it was very hard to understand the guide over the incessant crowd noise, we really didn't learn much about what we were seeing. This is the Gallery of Maps. The panels depict the entire Italian peninsula and were made in 1580, but I find the frescoes and paintings on the vaulted ceiling to be more impressive than the maps. Once we got to the Sistine Chapel, we found out why we had to rush through the rest of the museum. Our guide spent close to a half an hour telling us his religious and political views of each of the panels. Our tour ends at the impressive St. Peter's Basilica. Outside the Basilica, we watched the changing of the Swiss Guard. It was pretty uneventful and not worth staying around for. The evenings in Rome were quite nice, and we spent most of our time just wandering the streets. We were surprised that after sunset, so many of the streets turned into sidewalk cafes. Here we're fighting the crowds at the Trevi Fountain. Today we're visiting the ancient Roman ruins, starting off at the Colosseum. Here you can see where the original floor was, and the labyrinth of walkways that were underneath. Our long day of walking takes us to Palatine Hill, one of the famous 7 hills of Rome. Nearby are the ruins of the Roman Forum, ancient Rome's political and religious center. One thing we found that was unusual is that very little of the ruins are walled off. You can just walk up and touch almost anything. There were a few signs saying not to climb on things, but that seemed to be just for your own safety. One thing I found interesting was the artistic craftsmanship and detail of the relics. For some reason, when I think of ancient ruins, I don't think of the detail and workmanship that I find in these artifacts. I find it incredible that the engineering, architecture, and technologies that were lost with the fall of the Roman Empire, to be able to build these buildings not just with stone and brick, but with poured concrete, indoor plumbing, and sewer systems. I was also amazed at the quality of glass they produced. I had no idea. Moving on, we entered Plaza della Minerva, and an odd statue, Bernini's elephant carrying an obelisk. This monument is in honor of Victor Emmanuel II, the first king of a united Italy. It is also the home of Italy's tomb to the unknown soldier. Our next stop is the Pantheon. This temple, now church, is the best preserved of the ancient Roman buildings, and has been in continuous use since its construction in the 7th century. The most spectacular aspect of the building is its gigantic dome. It's made of poured concrete, and as the dome rises, the walls get thinner to reduce the weight. The very top of the dome is open, in what's called an oculus. This is Piazza Navona, a large oval plaza built on the site of an old Roman stadium. It is now known for its many artists and cafes, as well as a number of lovely fountains. This one called the Fountain of Neptune. On the other side of the plaza is the Fountain of the Four Rivers, and depicts 4 river gods, representing major rivers of the 4 known continents: the Nile for Africa, the Danube for Europe, the Ganges for Asia, and the Rio de Plata for the Americas. Across from the fountain is the spectacular Baroque-style church, Sant'Agnese Nenagone. It's been a long, tiring day, but we still had enough energy to enjoy a gelato and visit some of the sights near our hotel that evening. Having enough of the crowds of Rome, we spend our last day in the mountain town of Tivoli. We're here to visit the impressive water gardens of the Villa d'Este. The gardens and estate were built in the 1500s. The many fountains are all gravity-fed by diverting the Agnene River into a complex series of pipes, canals, and channels. I originally visited here with my parents in 1973, and unfortunately, a number of things have changed. This is the oval fountain. I remember it when you used to be able to walk underneath the falls, and the staircase here was a cascade of flowing water. Time takes its toll. It is said that over 70% of the fountains here no longer work, but the ones that have survived are impressive. This is the organ fountain, where hydraulic machinery mixed air and water to operate the various musical instruments. After a long period of neglect, it deteriorated beyond any hopes of repair. But in 2003, it was rebuilt. Now with 144 organ pipes, it can be played by keyboard or play 4 pre-programmed musical pieces. This walkway is called the 100 Fountains. and is fed by 3 parallel canals. This is the Neptune Fountain, one of the newest ones, built in the 1930s. It sits below the organ fountain and replaces one that was created in the 17th century by the sculptor Bernini. We spend our last night in Rome visiting the famous Spanish Steps and getting that last taste of gelato. Tomorrow morning we'll be flying home, giving us time to think back on our fabulous vacation.